Hi, welcome to inapickleknitting. My name is Donna. This is episode 29, and today is Thursday, December 27th, 2018, just 2 days past Christmas. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will be talking today about a few finished objects, a little bit of work going on in progress, our children's literature book with a fiber-related content, and some giveaways. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, a finished object, and I will have to show you a picture here. I made a pair of mittens for my grandson who outgrew his from last year and lost a pair. So these are the Tin Can Knits pattern called, let me get it right here, the world's simplest mittens, and they're quite simple and come in a variety of sizes, and he likes them very much. I used some leftover Heartland yarn by Miss Babs. It is a worsted weight yarn in a denim-y sort of a color. If I can find the ball band, I'll put it down here. I used literally all of the yarn. I have maybe 2 yards left of this yarn. I had purchased it to make Mystery Knit Along 2 years ago, and it was a sort of a cowl, and needed to get a second skein. I think I actually purchased 2 skeins and just needed like the tiniest bit to finish it up, so I broke into the second skein. And then I used some of it to make my dad a pair of slippers, and I've used the very last of it to make this pair of mittens. And I really like to use all the yarn, and I particularly like knitting with this Heartland yarn. And if I've got that name wrong, I will put it down here. I don't think I have a project page on Ravelry for this project, but I will get one up there. I have been away from Ravelry for a bit, not for any particular reason other than it's just been so busy and hectic at this time of the year, as I know it is for everyone. So I just have not gotten to that point yet, but which is something I usually do first or very soon after I start a project, but that did not happen. The other thing that I made for my grandson that's a finished object that I have to show you a picture of is a hat. Now, I got the pattern off of Ravelry, but I did not save it in my favorites. I didn't get a digital copy of it. I think there was a link to a website, and so I just pulled that up and used it, and I don't remember what the name of it was. So I searched through Aviator Hats, which is I'm pretty sure that's what I searched for the first time when I found the pattern, and I could not find it. So if I'm able to find that later, I'll put it across the screen for you. This is not a pattern that I will be repeating, and only because the little button band that goes across the top is done in a stockinette stitch. So as you well know, it's gonna roll. I did block it and put it on the hat, and then there are buttons on either side, and it still rolled. So what I finally ended up doing was stretching it over a head form and actually stitching it down on the top and the bottom so that it would not roll. I also am not particularly happy with that brim. I don't like the edges, and I could probably take it off and go back and maybe slip the stitches along both edges. I just don't care for the look of the purl bumps there. But it's irrelevant because he doesn't like the hat. He says it's too tight. So I've made him another hat, but it doesn't match his hat. Excuse me. I'm going to see about getting some more red yarn and just making him a different kind of a hat. He loves the hat that I made last year from the yarn that was the Knit Girls colorway, and it was from Fiber Seed. It was an intentional pooling pattern. Doesn't match his coat at all, but he really likes that hat. The yarn's really soft, the size is good, it doesn't feel tight. So I'll probably just get some more red yarn and make him just a simple hat like that, which was quick and easy. So those are 2 things I can't show you because he's got them other than the pictures. He's been wearing them, and the mittens are tied into his coat, so we can't get those. I also was busy working on project that remains a work in progress because my daughter had a request, and she never asks for me to knit things, so I was happy to do this. They are going to the Virginia Tech Bowl game, which is being held in Annapolis, Maryland. And if it's a really cold day, they have to wear hats because sitting in the bleachers and all. So she asked if I would make 3 hats out of hokey colors. Now, only people who go to Virginia Tech think these colors go together. I don't think most people really would put them together otherwise, unless they match something else that you do. But really maroon and orange. And I had the orange already. So, and it was Malabrigo Rios, and so I wanted to use Malabrigo Rios for the other color. And my local yarn shop, the Yarn Cloud, carries this yarn, and they did have a color that I think turned out, close enough. I'll put the color names there because I don't remember what they were. First is this hat for my grandson, and it's just striped in the 2 colors, and hopefully I'll get a picture of him in it. Oh, no, I have a picture of him in it. I'll put that here. And it fits nicely. He likes it. It's soft like the other hat. It doesn't match his coat, so it's not a hat that, just like the other hat, doesn't match the coat, so it's not one that I'm going to most likely put on him. I did add these little tags from Knitting I Love. I think I've had these for a while and never put them on anything. And the reason I put them on these 3 hats is because being striped, even though you can see this jog here, I tried a different way to do the jogless stripe where you traveled up, but it shows anyway. So I think I'd have preferred it to go straight up the back of the hat. But anyway, that's the back because it's the ugly part. I never have a whole lot of luck with that jogless stripe. I've tried several different ways. The second hat is this one. So I didn't want them to all be just the same, but in the same vein. And this one, they're all the same yarns. This one is an adaptation of the Bankhead Hat. I just didn't do the brim the way that she has you do it. And so it has a knit purl, so that gives it some stretch and, can be tight enough. And I did put that tag on the back here, although on this hat, because it's not, a lot of stripes, it blends in pretty well. And then the third hat is for my daughter. Now, this mannequin head, this styrofoam head, is small. So it's not stretching this hat out. This is the Wurm Hat, W-U-R-M, and I cannot pronounce who it's by, but I'll put it up here, and I will put links to the patterns down in the down bar. So this is where you have this texture. So I did the stockinette part in the orange and the garter part and the brim of the hat in the maroon. And then I could not do the pom-pom until I was done with all 3 hats because I wasn't sure how much yarn I was going to have left over. And I also wanted to make sure she wanted a pom-pom, and once she saw the hat, she did. And so I ended up using up all the yarn. I got 3 hats out of 2 skeins of Malabrigo Rios, and this is what's left over. And that just pleases me. Totally. So she loved it, which is good. It's a little slouchy, which is another reason why it doesn't really stretch out here. But when it's on the head, it looks nice. I didn't block it, and it looks really weird when it's off. It sort of, pulls back up. But as soon as you put it on, it's not like that. The back of this is really bad because you're making the color changes at these garter ridges. But it's a slouchy hat, and it's definitely the back. And I don't think it shows very much because of where it is. So those 3 hats are finished projects, and they were Christmas gifts. So I had to get those done, and so I had to put the things that I was working on away. Now that the holiday is over, I'm getting back to those projects that I was working on. So I think that's all I have for finished projects. And go on to my works in progress. My first work in progress I'm keeping in this gorgeous project bag. It's a drawstring bag that's really wide, and it has this gorgeous detail here with sequins, and that matches the fabric here so nicely. It's, as I said, a drawstring bag with a really sturdy cord. I never have had one with that thick of a cording, but it works really well. I guess when I would look at it, I would think, oh, that's too big, and I would buy the smaller, but I actually really like this thicker, sturdier cord in here. Well, this was made, of course, by So Sweet Violet. If you watched any of my Vlogmas, you will have seen that this was part of the Advent calendar that I ordered, Christmas Advent calendar that I ordered from So Sweet Violet. And this was not wrapped. This was the beginning item, and then there were 12 days of things to open. And I did share those all on Vlogmas. So I may stick a picture right here, and that will show some of the different daily prizes that were part of this. One really nice addition was the, I've got it, here it is this matching DPN cozy. So that was another, there were lots and lots of special touches I really enjoyed opening all of my things from the Advent calendar. So what I'm working on is a pair of socks. You may have seen this particular colorway. I've noticed it a lot on Instagram. A lot of people ordered it from the Cozy Knitter, and I've got to pull my yarn out here where I keep it, but I'm knitting the Advent stripe socks. So let me get them out here. I'm using a size 1 needles. I'm using these Zings, I think they are, DPNs, on one pair, and the other pair I have a Chigu Magic Loop. But here is the repeat. Now I'm using a contrast here so that my stripe sequence started here, and there are 24 colors, and it stopped. This is where it starts to repeat. So you can see how far down the repeat is. I have put an afterthought heel in before I finished the toe. So then this way I can try it on and knit till I know that the toe will fit. So for me, a little bit easier than finishing the tube and going back and deciding where to put it in. I know, I measure it, I know where to put it, but I do think it works out better for me to do it this way. So I can try it on here, and I'm getting close. I think I've decided I probably need to go to the pink. So I'm on this blue color. So I'll need to do the white, finish the blue, do the white and the pink, and then I think I'll be at the place I'm gonna do the toe. And I will do this color. This color, I don't know the name of. It's, I don't know that it had a name. It is a mini skein that came with another Cozy Knitter self-striping yarn that I have, and that is this one right here. This is called Harvest, and so it has these pretty fall colors in there, and the green was the mini. Now when you order Cozy Knitter set, you get 85 grams of the self-striping, which is more than enough if you're going to do, especially if you're doing contrast. But for me, it's more than enough just to do the pair of socks. But it's a 30-gram mini. So with 30 grams, you can do heels, cuffs, and toes. And so you can make a really long sock if you use the contrast. So I didn't want to use it all. That's why I decided I would use the stripes to do my heel. And just, I wasn't sure at the beginning how the stripes were going to stripe up. That it was what size they were going to be, that maybe I would do the 24 stripes and be done with the sock, you know, ready for me to finish the toe or whatever. So I thought, well, if I start with a contrast, I can end with it, and it'll just give me that flexibility. I didn't need it, but oh well. I knew I'd have enough yarn. So this is the first one or the second one, and the other one, as I said, I'm doing on Magic Loop. So there it is, and I'm pretty much at the same place. Let's see. One is longer than the other right now. This one on the DPNs, because I was working on it this morning, and I usually do 3 or 4 stripes and then go to the other one and do 3 or 4. I was going to start off and do 1 stripe at a time, but then I had those hats to do, and I thought, well, I don't want to get behind. So I thought I'll just, also I was on a trip to South Carolina. I needed something to knit on the airplane. So I brought these with me, and it was my hotel knitting, and so I got a bit ahead, and I thought, well, that's good because I have other things to work on. So that is a work in progress, and I hope to finish those really, really soon, like in the next day or two. The other work in progress that I have is I did some work this month on my Coziest memory blanket. And if you watch the podcast, you'll know I do this kind of in fits and starts. Last year, I got the Nora George Christmas Advent Calendar, and I put all of my little minis into the blanket. So this year, I did a swap with Ellie from Craft House Magic, and she sent to me some wrapped beautiful bits of yarn that she had, and I decided I'm going to put those into my blanket. And then she also sent me some beautiful bits that weren't wrapped up, so I didn't do them as part of Advent, but I am adding them to the blanket. But I had to stop this for those hats again. So let me show you the ones that I added. And I was showing this, I think, on my, I think I was showing it on the, well, I showed the yarns every day when I opened them on the Vlogmas, but I don't know if I showed the blanket much with them. This is one of Ellie's colors that she sent me a bit of, and this, I'll put the name here. It's the name of a song, but I'm probably going to say it wrong. And this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. And if I have the names, I will can get them straight. I will put them down here. There's one. Another. And I know this is Mothy and the Squid Raspberry. This one. And this one I think is Hedgerow Yarns. This is a color way I've never seen it before, but I tried to dye something up that looks something like that with those colors, and I did get the colors, but it's in the blanket here someplace. But what I didn't leave were like white spaces, and I think that really helps that color. And that one, and this one. So those I added, and that made 12 because I have right now it's going 12 down the sides, and then I flipped over to the other side, and these I can tell you. This one right here is one that Ellie sent me. This is Rainbow Cloud. And this one is from Lay Family Yarns called Button Jar, which I really like that. I really like them all. A Little Yellow Uke. And I love that color. I don't think it's really showing up quite as, it's a little bit more gold than it's showing up. And this one, I think some of them did not have a name on them, but most of them did. And then I have still from Ellie 3 more that I will be adding. And then I have so many minis for blankets that I've got a bunch of already, you know, little bits left over. So I'm going to finish another 12 down that side. And I've done 24 for the month of December. So I'm not there, and I'm going to have to get busy on that if I'm going to finish the socks. And the last of these, what have I got here? 4 on this side, 8 more squares on here in the socks. I can do it by the end of December 31st, or maybe by January 1st. So those are really just the 2 things that I'm working on right now, which is probably just enough. I don't have any knitting plans and goals for right now. I'm again, like everyone else, been very busy and not really thinking about that. I also had Adelaide Cottage, her Advent calendar, which was 24 20-gram minis and a full skein. I will show you the full skein. I showed you the first 12 days, and maybe at the end I'll put a picture of all 24 days. And then this was the, I opened this on Christmas Day, and yeah, that's pretty close. It's purplish with maybe a teeny bit of brown, more purple than brown though. It is a sparkle yarn. I don't know if you can catch the sparkle a little bit there. And this colorway is No More Sleeps. So of course there's always that expression when you're waiting for something. Oh, we have 3 more sleeps until whatever the event is. Oh, this was for Christmas. No more sleeps. This was Christmas Day. We were finally there. This is on her Twinkle base, which is 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 5% silver stellina. So I think this is something that could really be the start of something lovely with other colors tied in there. So I should have mentioned this podcast may be done in fits and starts because just some things going on today. I don't know that I'm going to be able to just sit and go all the way through. Right now I am going to have to pause and go take care of something that needs to be done right now. And so I'll get right back to you just as soon as I can. Well, that didn't take too long, but I'll have to be stopping again. Let's go ahead and do our fiber-related book, and a children's literature fiber-related book. This book is a fairly new book, I believe. It was new to me, and I didn't know anything about it when I ordered it, and I just love it. It's called Crafty Llama, a story about crafting, friendship, and the very best gifts. So this seems such a perfect time to share this book because a lot of us have been doing gift knitting or gift crafting, and that's what this book is about. It's by Mike Kerr, illustrated by Renata, don't know how to say that name, Lewiska maybe? Probably not. I'm sorry. So you'll see the illustrations are delightful, and you will see the little llama is knitting, and there's her friend Beaver who's looking at some of her knitting progress. Now, Llama and Beaver are friends, and Llama actually has a lot of forest friends. She loves to make anything lovely, and that might just be you. It might just be me. Don't care what it is. If it's pretty, I want to knit it. If I think the pattern's cute, whatever, maybe that's what you want to do. And that's how she is. She likes to knit, but it needs to be lovely. Beaver is a practical sort of guy. If he can't make it, if it's not useful, he doesn't need it. So, of course, like for knitting for my grandson, he needs mittens. So that was useful knitting. More so than lovely, but they were lovely to me as well. And he likes them because they're soft. So they are different kinds of crafters. So the story begins, and Llama, I do like all of the fibery things that they include here and all of the crafty things. You'll first see Llama getting a haircut there, which, you know, might be shearing. And she heads out with all of her fur, mohair, whatever, llama fur that is there. And she comes out and just is thinking, what is she going to make from all of this fiber? And decides to do some spinning. So she's spinning some yarn to work with, but she still just really doesn't know what she wants to make. So she sits down and starts knitting and does a lot of thinking. And along come her friends. I love this page because we've got one beading a necklace, some counted cross stitch, some quilting while she knits. Friends just keep stopping by. We have continued with the cross stitch, the quilting, and the beaded necklace. We've got the sewing machine here. This is, I couldn't tell at first. I thought at first, well, are they weaving? But no, it's potato printing. So you can see the potatoes cut here and they're printing. And then we have here some a painting being done and basket weaving. And over here, they're looking at their plants. So just everyone has their own little thing that they like to do. But Beaver just isn't sure about this because what could I do with this? It might be lovely, but it's not very useful. So he's thinking about the ways that he could use it. And none of the ideas really seem to hit the mark there. So more friends stop by to see what's going on, and because Llama's been doing so much thinking, she's got a lot of knitting to share. And she makes a little thing to keep Lion's mane back. Sorry about that. I had another computer that wanted to talk to me. something to hold Elephant's trunk, something for Turtle to wear when he comes out of his shell. So all of these things actually are quite lovely and quite useful. So everyone's busy making things except Beaver because he's looking for something that's going to be useful. And what he does when he's thinking is gnaws away at a tree. But they stopped to take a little break, and it became a long break. And there's what's happened to Beaver's thinking. And look what Llama does. Something lovely and something useful. So I just really enjoyed this book, and I hope maybe there's somebody that you'd like to share that book with. Another project that kept me busy and kept me away from having a whole lot more knitting than I have right now is, if you watch Vlogmas, you have seen my 12 Days of Christmas ornaments made from felt. I used patterns from the mmmcrafts, and these are patterns that you can download and use along with wool or a wool blend felt to create these ornaments. And there are places on Etsy, for instance, Benzie Designs, and I'll put the other name down here, something about fly and fur felt or something. I'll put the name. So those are two, but there are many more if you searched on Etsy for wool blend felt or wool felt. And I made these ornaments from that. I did decide to give them to my parents, and they are going to be opening them. Well, they have started opening them through the 12 Days of Christmas. So the Partridge in the Pear Tree was for Christmas Day, and then I have one for them to open each day afterward, along with a second little gift for them to share. So I don't have them to show, but I will put some pictures here, and so that you can see that's something that kept me kind of busy. They are, for me, they're rather time consuming, just because maybe it's a different craft and there's lots of little details to it. They're not difficult, but for me, I think each one, I would say, probably took me several hours. And so for crafting time, I was probably able to get out one a day, but not do any knitting. Or very, very little knitting, because they would take quite a bit of time. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have lots more felt, because when I ordered the package of felt from, or the kit, I guess, materials kit from Benzie Designs, I got enough to make a lot of ornaments. So I will be working throughout this year to try and get one or perhaps two sets of those. And if I do get any done through the year, I will be sure to share them on the podcast, even though it's not knitting. Okay, for our drawings, what I have today is a redraw for our shawl along. On the last podcast, it was kind of early-ish December, I had drawn for winter, and I've not heard from them. So the price for this is a pattern for the banner unfurled shawl, 3 skeins of yarn, and the beads to make that shawl. So I have redrawn from the random number generator. I think it was 2 through 209, and he came up with 207, 207, and that's Dingle Kringle. So if you could please send me a private message on Ravelry and give me your full name and your mailing address, I will get your prize mailed out to you. If I don't hear from the winner this time, I'm just going to, that's just going to be the end of it, because it starts to get to be, just too much to keep up with for me. That, the prizes are intended for those who watch the podcast. So if you don't watch, then, I should keep going with it. But really it is, for me, it's just too many little details to keep up with. So, our socks, we will draw at, it's December 31st is the end of the sock along, and this is the one where you can put 2 entries if you have used any kind of striping on your socks, self-striping or you striped it. And I'm going to have that end, I say December 31st, but it really will go on into early January until I do the podcast, and then I'm going to lock it and close that out. So I'll pull a winner at that time. And also our mitten along, I will do the same thing. Drawing will be at the very next podcast. And our oldies, which is when you're using an old pattern or old stash. It can be sewing, it can be any of your crafting that you do. So that there will be 3 drawings on the next podcast, which should be sometime around mid-January, and our Shawl Along already closed. So coming up in the future, lots of people do the Make 9. I don't do that. I find for me, setting goals makes me disappointed more than feeling successful, because ultimately I never get done everything that I want to do because something else comes along, something I hadn't thought about, or a new thing that's popped up that I hadn't known about. So I don't tend to set those kinds of goals for my life in crafting. I do love to have lists and cross things off and get things done and feel that accomplishment, but that's more on things that I have to get done. And I like to think that my knitting and my other crafting is something that I want to get done, and that's just fun. That's an outlet for me that's non-stress producing. I was stressed out even with those hats. I was knitting until 11:30 on Christmas Eve trying to finish a hat. So I don't like that, but I wanted to do it because I was asked to do it, and I was happy to be asked, and I wanted to make them. But still, when there's that time thing, I don't like the pressure of having to get things done like that when you've got other things that have to be done as well. So you won't be hearing those kinds of goals from me. I'll just be knitting whatever sounds good to me at the time, like I always do. I also need to talk about what I'm grateful for, and I'll need to be thinking of a new word for next year, I guess. This will be the last podcast with the word gratitude or gratefulness. And what I'm grateful for today is my family, every part of my family. And I think especially at this time of the year, that's where a lot of minds go. So I'm thankful for my family and for my close friends. So that's, I want to wish you a happy and prosperous new year, because I won't be back before January 1st. So I hope that you have a great time of your New Year's Eve. If you celebrate, we sit at home, but we have special traditions for New Year's Day, and I hope that whatever you have going on, that you enjoy yourselves, and I hope that you will come back to see me again with the next episode. Bye!